Back in Denver at the Athletic Club, my name is Dave Vincent alongside John Bike and eventually Dave Fink. It's John Iglesias versus Marco Chavez, the Edel Handball WPH Race for 8 Tour number 3. As we are now underway, referee is Luis Cordova. Iglesias now living back in New York. And Marco Chavez, Buena Park, California. Or Loma Linda, depending on which bio. Is that how you say it?
I think Loma Linda is another area.
0-0.
His favorite big ball court is, he might be La Mirada.
Over.
His favorite courts are Buena Park, I think. Favorite outdoor courts.
0-0.
Okay.
So this is a rematch of another qualifier final, is that right?
Yep.
Just from what I know of these two, I mean, I can't say enough about how much I respect Marco's game, and I would call him a heavy favorite. But boy, Jonathan had some good results last month, didn't he?
No, he's been playing incredible handball, as he always really has. But yeah, his results have been pretty good. Beating Nati Alvarado recently.
No.
Marco Chavez.
I'm sorry, I was talking about Iglesias.
Oh, okay. Yeah, at the last tournament, he defeated Sean Lenning and Luis Moreno. Now, I think anybody could pretty much end their handball career after beating those two guys in consecutive matches. He lost to Robbie McCarthy in the qualifier final, but then defeated Sean Lenning and Luis Moreno right after that.
Oh, that's like a double avoidable. Slow to get out of the way and then fast to get back in the way.
No call from the ref, though. I'm watching him really closely. He must feel pretty secure with his call, because he did not even make eye contact with me, and I gave him the eye.
That really is borderline how slowly he jumped to get out of the way, and then he just, as quickly as he could, got back in the way of the shot. That's...
Do those two cancel themselves out?
Apparently so. Apparently that was the referee's interpretation.
It's a one-game match at 25, win by 2. And that's a flat rollout right there from Iglesias.
As a famous wise man once said, ball don't lie. Only way to end a call after that is an emphatic rollout.
Was this famous person a handball?
It was originally basketball. I think I might have brought it to handball once or twice, but I'm thinking of a basketball player.
I thought it was. I'll tell you who it is here. Hold on just a second. I have to think.
I know who it is.
I do know too, and it's Rasheed Wallace.
There you go.
Nailed it.
Well, your phone nailed it.
Nope, no hands on a phone, no Google, no Whizzle.
I remember incorporating that into my own game when he first got famous for doing it, and I've completely forgot about it. And my brother sent me a YouTube compilation of his finer moments.
He's got a lot of fine moments. As Marco Chavez had finer moments in that last skip in the right corner. Altogether at 2.
Ball still not lying. Double avoidable calls for 2 acts of God.
And Iglesias here getting that overhit ball from Marco Chavez off the front wall. Little slight underhand paddle. 3-2. Iglesias, newly sponsored Edel Handball pro player. Ben Edel from edelhandball.com is here. And you can see that gear. They're also the sponsor of the Race for 8 Tour. That was one of those big ball screens, not called by the ref.
Hold it.
Both of these players really congested in here at the moment.
2-2.
Yeah, both with a lot of outdoor experience, getting in front of themselves.
That ball looked like it skipped on camera, but it was a nice little corner kill from Iglesias.
2-2.
You're listening to the voice of Hall of Famer John Bike.
Occasionally, yeah.
My only Hall of Fame was one of the guys that introduced you into the Hall of Fame. That's my only Hall of Fame moment, to be honest.
Those are good times. I've got that one on the hard drive. I break that out. It's my sub plans right now. My students are watching that.
Nice. When your day's full of laughter and fun, you bring that out to bring you back to normality.
Point.
Oh, just the opposite. That's the ultimate pick-me-up. Now, Marcos, uncharacteristically being the first one with the self-talk today, but probably not the start he wanted.
This altitude, John, really does weird things to the body. You almost feel like at times you'd rather just give up. It makes you angry, and you don't know how to
5 serves 2.
how to play here. It's just a strange feeling altogether.
Shut out.
And there's that quick hands, underhand paddle,
And he
big
had
ball,
Marcos.
one wall style from John Iglesias that didn't
2 serves
convert.
5.
That's good choice, but it just didn't have to be that low. Marcos was still very deep in the court.
Smart idea from Marcos,
Point.
picked up by Iglesias, but unable to convert to the front wall. And
A good combo there from Marcos.
3 serves 5.
Sharp corner to draw him way up front left, and then a drive to the right.
Point.
now we're at 4-5. You've played Marcos on and off throughout
4
your
serves 5.
handball lifetime. John, what is that one thing that you say about him, or maybe two things that he does that when you go into a match with him, you say, I have to watch out for this, or I have to do
5
that?
serves 5.
Well, this right here, what you see in these last 2 points, when he's flowing, just absolute magic hands. And I mean, I had 2 separate careers with him, beating him every single
Hold
time
it.
till like 03. But you look at the calendar, that's 10 years ago, so it's been going his
5
way for
serves
that.
5.
I think 04 was the first time I lost to him, and that's how it's been since.
So when he has those hot hands, and like you're seeing now where he's just obviously a different guy, what do you do to break that momentum with him?
You know, I try to go higher and slower,
Out.
but he doesn't. He's got the poise. That's not just going to break him. You just try and slow it
5
down
serves
enough,
5.
maybe until you get your own game going. Once again, though, as
Short.
far as having success with that, I got to go back 11 years, and
It was
Yeah.
short.
It's one of those easier said than done type things,
It's
because I think you said it with that poise. He has a methodical game that even if you go up there, you might get exploited yourself, because he knows how to control the top boards just like the low board as well. I mean,
yeah, he's not going to be bothered by the high
Alright.
game. And I think
Second
if you
serve.
look at his record, I don't think anybody's just gone right through him since he's come back.
Yeah,
You know,
right here. We have him right here.
he loses
Short,
eventually in the
short,
tournament,
second
but he's been right in every match he plays. Look at that.
that was an
Out.
interesting roundabout left corner. And knowing Marcos, he meant to do that the whole time.
Absolutely.
That might look like slop to you if you're watching back
5
home,
serves
but
5.
if you played against Marcos, you realize that he just has every trick in the book.
Hold it.
And there's nothing that really phases him. I mean, he's not rattled. That
5
poise
serves
that you're
5.
talking about, he's up there with the leaders of the pack in that. I wouldn't even see him getting nervous against Paul Brady.
No, I probably be even more relaxed. You wonder how he'd handle that pace, but it wouldn't be an emotional issue.
Well,
Pretty much anything short of one of those
Serve that
sharp
one.
shoes tearing. I don't think anything else would.
Serves 5.
But that wouldn't phase him either. He travels with about 8 pair.
well, he's got a collection of Kobe Bryant
Short.
shoes, Nikes. That's what he does. He collects shoes. But as I talked to Paul Brady about Marco Chavez on Wednesday when we both arrived, went out to
Second
lunch, he
serve.
said that Marcos has this real calmness about him, just sort of laid back attitude that gets into a lot of players' heads. And he said the first time I played him, he goes, he was doing that all shucks routine with me, and he said it really affected me. Like I really couldn't understand how to play him. He said then once I
5
beat
serves
him,
6.
maybe in 2002 or 3, he said then it was,
Short.
I understood who he was.
Heels,
But
hold it short.
when other Irish players are playing him,
Overtake.
like Robbie McCarthy, Paul gives him advice and said, you have to look past this. You have to understand it's like this other player in
Second serve.
Ireland. You have to not be affected by that lackadaisical attitude. He said Robbie kind of went into that match in Houston as if, oh, this is just some guy. And Paul was saying, you, on text, you have to understand who you're playing here. This guy's a master at manipulating you off the court. And then once you get on the court, he'll do it again to you with this sort of laid-back attitude.
5 serve 6.
Yeah, that's kind of a bonus for him. I always felt that way about that serve he hits. It's a smart serve just for what it is, a ball that isolates the middle of your offhand.
Short.
And then that added benefit, it just gets in people's heads. He's not messing with you. He's hitting the smartest serve he can hit, but you sure do feel like you're being messed with.
Yeah, absolutely. And then when you're on the receiving end of a 3-point swing, and all of a sudden it really gets into your head. And if you haven't played him before, it's almost impossible to beat him for the first time. Yeah, I mean, it's one of these guys that you have to play a few times to get into rhythm.
Iglesias hanging right with him now, though.
6 serve 6.
This might be the match of the qualifier match of the tournament so far. Now 7-6 for Churches, John Iglesias.
Interesting angle
7
here.
serve 6.
We've done the draw already. We usually do it during or just before the last match for media purposes.
Second serve.
And these two know who they play, and you absolutely want to be the winner of this match unless you're, well, I don't know what case it would be, but the winner is going to play Andy Nett. The loser is going to play Luis Moreno.
So both players are trying to avoid Moreno, so that means that you're going to see probably a real close match, and that might just be the new formula that we need here to get more competitive qualifiers, is let them know who they're playing ahead of time.
That only works in this case, though, mainly because it's Moreno.
That's true.
Like there's other cases where they just our 5-3 is so strong right now that then they would have just openly been.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, because this was the last match of the day, so that's the only way you would know. But also, what happens on the last match of the day when you pull the name out of the hat and it conflicts with something that happened on the previous tournament? So I guess this all would have to be done in advance. And this happened to work out perfect. And the only reason why it was done in advance is one player has to get ready to play, and he's part of the seating committee. And now we have another point here. Iglesias serving.
That's why I would like to see all 4 match results, just to avoid what you said. If there's a possibility of a conflict, but you don't know it yet, that's the only answer to that, is to wait till the results are in.
Yeah, well, I don't think the players know that they know.
But I'm talking specifically about what you just said.
Okay.
What if
7 serve 7.
we had a conflict because of the last tournament?
Right, okay.
And you got down to those last 2 guys, and there'd be no conflict if one guy won, and yes, conflict if the other guy won. There's no answer to that.
That's true.
Out.
There's a side out.
7 serve 7.
We're all together at 7, 1-game match to 25. This is a qualifier final, bonus coverage. Hall of Famer John Bike sitting in with Hall of Famer Dave Vince. Actually, my family, John, spitting distance Hall of Fame up in Sweet Home, Oregon. So
8 serve 7.
That's some good genes there.
yeah, spitting distance.
Look, to make it to attach names to the situation, let's just say it wasn't Moreno left. It was winner gets Lenning. I'm sorry, loser gets Lenning, winner gets Net, and Iglesias played Lenning last time. Then you'd have a big mess.
That's true.
You've already told 6 guys you've drawn 6 spots, and this one would be a 50-50 chance at a conflict.
That was a strange little 2 flops in a row there from Marcos. That one more of a big ball shot. Now Marcos says to us just last night, he's staying at our handball house, he said that
7 serve 8.
he's just playing big ball all the time now. Indoor 4-wall and outdoor. He played 1-wall just a couple days ago against Ibanez outside, which was a high-profile match. But he said he's playing almost everything but 4-wall at the moment, just to get into shape for this 4-wall moment. And now you've seen him, you know, he's really, in the last few years, John, taken a lot more big ball shots. Look at that. More big ball play from Marcos. And then you have a big ball player as well, John Iglesias. Also converting over to small ball. And you heard Marcos say it's humid in here, or?
And let's hear it to somebody, because that And I don't blame him at all for that. He hit about 4 remarkable shots, and we got crickets out there. Those guys, I see a guy doing a crossword puzzle. Maybe. I mean, that was the rally ender itself deserved applause, but he set that rally up with 3 or 4 other phenomenal shots. And
that was good. There you go.
That's, I mean, you
that
got
pretty
to
much
give it
made
up
up for everything that was going on there.
He doesn't even know I did it, though.
Marcos is calling a timeout here because after winning that rally, he goes outside and he's telling the guys, look at him, there he is. He's telling them to start cheering.
It doesn't get better than that, people. What?
Marcos is saying, come on, put your hands together when you see a good shot. Now you have to imagine this is a Friday at about almost 2 o'clock on a day where a lot of the locals here, in fact all of them, are going to get on their planes and private planes, fly into the tournament, drive in as well. So you don't have the same type of crowd capacity. Marcos, though there's about 75 upstairs, downstairs watching, it's not the normal 500 people we have grouped around this court. He still thinks that 75 should all be putting their hands together.
Well, once again, I totally agree with him. That was just a beautiful sequence of shots.
Oh, he knows. Another reason why
he's firing himself up now.
Marcos will be probably voted on and put into the club soon, hopefully.
I'm seeing more and more of that every tournament.
Just don't play him. When you play him, it's a different story.
No, I totally understand. He's doing his best way to win. It's
10
not.
serves 8.
If you want to interpret it as being messed with, then that's kind of your own. That's a you problem.
Yeah, he's got a great gamesmanship thing that he does on and off the court, just so condescending in such a fun way.
And condescending is a value trait in the club.
It's just
definitely got to be condescending.
But it's in a matter-of-fact way. It's in a huckleberry.
He's feeling it now. I'm enjoying this. I'm enjoying this right here. I wish he was already in. I'd be giving him the thumbs up right now.
11 serves 8.
But back to the condescending trait. Yeah, that's a lot of people view that as a bad thing.
It's condescending in a good way. Oh, look at this setup here. Holds it just a little bit longer to freeze John Iglesias with a little bit of that showmanship from
John
OC Handball.
Yeah, John trying a little hard to show his cool here. Might be time for his own timeout.
I'd like to see Marco Chavez.
Hold it.
Is John okay? I'd like to see Marcos as an actor. I think his calling might be in a different.
We actually have a veteran Race for 8 and old Spalding Gatorade Pro Tour veteran who's a professional
doing
actor
indie
now
films
as a hobby.
Yeah. Also USHA board member.
That's right.
He also takes in stray pets around the high desert area.
Does charity work. He purchased a very expensive Batman suit. Uses it mainly for charity work.
But oh well.
They both agree. Second serve.
That ball flipped to the back wall, unable to get to the front. Iglesias back in the box.
Eight serves 13.
So let's see. The thing at altitude, Marcos did spend a fair amount of emotional energy anyway on that mini run.
Look at that little flick. Both of these players can play off balance. Almost like, you see that the two players are very similar in that way where they can run side to side and hit these amazing shots off balance running. I would not say off balance, but certainly on the run.
The more I learn about core strength and all that, you could be on one foot and he's perfectly balanced, perfectly comfortable in those positions. Like a less accomplished player may look great with both feet in place, but still be wobbling around up top. And
well, you take a look at Nikolai Nahorniak, and I'm not making the comparison of saying a lesser player because he's certainly not, but he plays that stand-up, I need to plant my feet, I have the good form, kind of a Kurt Hiding sort of style of handball play from the early 90s, late 80s. And then you got Marcos and John, very similar style of game, playing more of a big ball underhand paddle on the run. You can plant a front foot and stay completely balanced. Both very creative.
15 serves 9.
And there is halftime. We're going to take a break here in the booth as well. We'll be back in 3 minutes for John Bike, Dave Vincent here as we have a 3-minute break. Stick around here at racefor8.com.
Think what you know about this Vegas icon. Elevate your expectations at the Stratosphere Hotel, Casino, and Tower. See what's new, up, down, and all around.
NFC, AFC, offensive linemen, defensive tackles, quarterbacks, and cornerbacks are all living united to ensure the academic success of millions of kids in our communities all the way to graduation day. But that won't happen without you. So take the pledge at unitedway.org. Make a difference in the life of a child. Suit up like your favorite NFL players and become a volunteer reader, tutor, or mentor with United Way.
It's Timothy Green's first day at school.
What's in there? He's
Well,
about
just
to fall over.
anything he might need. There's a box of tissues on the bottom and some Band-Aids. There's a whole first aid kit, actually.
Mom, I can handle it from here.
You don't have to be perfect
Have a great day.
That's too much pressure.
Have the day you have.
to be a perfect parent.
There are two people in the world who want you more than anything. They'll make some mistakes, but they will love you more than you can ever imagine.
There are thousands of children in foster care who will take you just as you are.
Everybody has a dream. Mine was to see the ocean. And with a little help, I made it.
Back in Denver at the Athletic Club, it is the second half. Marco Chavez from Buena Park going up against John Iglesias, New York. New York. Buena Park, California, that is.
Marco's showing he's comfortable at any pace, absolutely dictating. He went into hyperdrive and made a strong run to the half there. Still carrying that over. Really on his toes now, swinging hard.
Marcos looks really tough.
Well,
this moment.
Dave and John watching from just above the court, sans the
16
headphones.
serves 9.
Looks like John just completely ran out of gas at about 7-all. Marcos just knows how to pace himself so well.
Side out.
I don't know, John, if you're seeing the same thing, but John had a lot of intensity, maybe too much early in this match, and
9 serves
just
16.
kind of spent himself.
Yeah, I was sensing that.
Short.
It's so great there in that catbird seat, though, really seeing the expression on
Second
the
serve.
faces. And I was wondering that myself about how his day was going. And I'm glad you're here to confirm
Point.
that.
Both these guys have those really cool paddle fly
Yes, sir,
kill
16.
shots. Do you see any similarities in these two players, John?
Yeah, they both have these really cool paddle fly kill shots.
Okay.
And then, now John trying to
16
fire himself
serves
up,
10.
trying to match intensity.
Over.
Yeah, you could say
Check it.
maybe John just a younger version in some ways, but you can see the outdoor and the big ball background in both of them.
Right.
16 serves 10. Point.
Marcos hears John yell, and he goes back to slow and smooth. Truly a master.
17 serves 10.
The point after Iglesias got emotional, Marcos goes back to the lob and the slow kill.
Is that something you can even teach, John? I mean, that's a complete mastery of the psychological aspect of the sport.
Yeah, I don't see it. It's either got that or you don't.
Hold it.
Or maybe comes with experience a little
You don't
bit.
teach that.
Well, he just taught me.
Okay.
But it can't be, you have to already know it though. You can't go on the court thinking, next time he yells, I'm going slow. If he goes
17
slow, I'll go.
serves 10.
You just got to kind of sense that moment. And yeah, that would
Okay.
be, that's a skill very few players have.
It makes so much sense when you think about it. I would have never thought about it.
I'm
the court.
amazed that I even recognized that he did it. I mean, I would
Hold it.
never think of doing it myself.
Can you guys tell me what it is? I missed it, the first part of the sentence.
It's too bad. Sorry.
Marcos totally
17 serves
dictating
10.
pace of play. At about 8-all, he sensed a little
Short.
fatigue in Jonathan and went into hyperdrive for about
Okay.
a not 7-point
Second
run.
serve.
And as soon as John tried to match intensity with his own yelling, and Marcos went right back to the slop game.
I get that. And you can see it. But Marcos can play 2 games. He can play slop, and he can also play that real just hard ground and pound game.
He's showing it today.
We're seeing the full aspect, the full rainbow of Marcos.
10 serve 17.
Marcos, sorry, John, but Marcos seems like the kind of guy that's just kind of in there having a good time, enjoying himself, but the wheels are always turning with him, his mind.
Absolutely. We were saying during the first half, it's really up to the opponent to determine how they're going to let that affect their own game, but boy, it usually affects them negatively. Like, I've figured out real quick that the smartest possible serve he could hit against me was the slow one that forces you to play the in-between height in your offhand. That's just sound strategy. Now, if you also go in and get aggravated, like, oh, he's just messing with me, then it's like a double whammy.
Well, it's almost like Marcos has a few different needles. He's got just one that pricks the surface, and if that doesn't work, he'll go a little bit deeper and just keep digging it in until he's finally gotten under your skin.
And the sad thing is when he gets to that real surgical precision, as a player, you're going to go into almost a fist fight mode with him. I mean, he can get you to the point of completely being aggravated.
And then kind of laugh and say, come on, we're just
then
having
he's
fun.
buying you a beer out, in the parking lot, or he's just one of these. Afterwards, he's all back to the same guy that he was. It's just, it's all part of the effect. Now, the difference between him and Dave Chapman is, Dave Chapman will be doing that today, working on you 2 months later or sometime in the future. Marcos just kind of just works on you day to day. Dave Chapman tries to work on you month to month, year to year.
And Dave, we were talking about the term condescending, but in a good way, which if it isn't in our bylaws, it should be.
Okay.
That's a very important character trait to have, and Marcos definitely has. In fact, the more we talk about him, why is?
Well, he's in the. Can we just vote now? Can we vote now? We have 3 founding fathers.
But why hasn't he won like 10 national titles?
I don't even know what you're talking about. I think you should talk to Katrina Casey about whatever you're even mentioning.
Well, she's a founding father then, I guess.
Well, I know that all questions about what you're referring to do go to her.
Now you see Marcos hitting John Iglesias. He knew exactly where John was standing. I think he shanked that on purpose and hit him on purpose just to make some type of point with the referee.
I think John took away about 90% of the court there.
I think it would have been hard to miss him.
Yeah. And John does play close.
John would rather take a ball in that 35-foot spot than to take it off the back wall.
Hold it.
That was a great effort there from Marcos to sell the hinder call.
Now, talking to Marcos about his LAAC sparring partners, and I said, compare Vince Munoz and Armando Ortiz to each other, because obviously Marcos grew up idolizing Vince Munoz. And he said that he felt that Vince had a better power game than Armando did, but they're so similar. He said, sometimes I think I'm playing him.
Yeah, and Armando's way up. It was really eerie, uncanny, just how much he at that time he clearly was just, trying to just directly emulate Vince, and pretty much succeeding, I'd say.
Yeah, Marco said sometimes I'm playing him. I go, oh my gosh, I'm playing the same guy. He said he felt that Vince hit the ball a little bit harder, but it's hard to even hear that come out of his mouth when you watch or play against Mondo and say, this guy is hitting a real hard, heavy ball. And his ball is heavy. Dave, you've battled with Armando Ortiz. Are your thoughts about that indifferent? Does he have a heavy ball or just hit a hard ball? Some players seem to have a heavy ball.
Yeah, I think it's, to me, more of a hard ball. Luis Moreno, I would say, hits more of a heavier ball.
Nadia Alvarado hits a heavy ball, I think. Guys that hit that overspin, ball seems to always be digging into your gloves, coming at you at about 85 miles an hour.
And that's a great pass shot from John, but he doesn't catch the side wall, and Marco's able to keep the rally alive.
Both of these guys are crafty. And so you're going to see a lot of this converted big ball play in a small ball court.
John Iglesias, the product of Mike Watson's handball program in New York City. Growing up, Mike Watson taught all of his players 1-wall, 3-wall, and 4-wall, which is why John's one of the best all-around players, and he plays that hybrid game. He's now coached by Hall of Famer Carl Obert at the New York Athletic Club, Dave. If you
Wow.
get a chance to
What a
meet.
great coach. He coached me at the Worlds this year.
And a good effort by Iglesias rewarded there with kind of a fluky end to the rally.
And by this year, I mean this last season of the 2012 in Dublin.
Okay.
It's nice to have him courtside. John Iglesias still hanging in there, John, 12-17.
I think Marcos is clearly trying to conserve his energy, and I know from playing here last year, I realized very quickly that you have to pick your spots. And John, I know you played here as well last year. It's not so much going after every ball as hard as you possibly can, even though it's one game. You really have to determine where your best chances are to do damage.
Absolutely, really gauging the ebb and flow, and we've been jumping over ourselves to praise Marcos on that, but boy, he's in a bit of an ebb right now. Was that the 14th point, or?
I think it's the 13th point. It was at 12 before. Well, we'll see what the ref says. I really don't hear the referee coming through the microphone like we did earlier. And there's a dive get right there from Iglesias. Marcos back up top.
Nice fish shot to the ceiling there. And I don't know if we can see that back wall from here, but the back wall is glass, then solid, then glass again. And now I thought maybe a timeout from Marcos, but we won't see one. Amazing rally there.
Let's see if we can hear the score from the referee.
John Iglesias, Dave, saying the 6 things he loves about handball are certainty, uncertainty, significance, love and connection, growth, and contribution. Interesting. He's a very deep thinker.
Score here is 15-17, not 13, but 15-17. So
fine, we'll just take it down then.
Take it. I said it. It doesn't need to be put up there. Dave, that's a pretty interesting quote.
Well, you can log on to John's WPH Pro Player bio.
Now it's 16-17. John Iglesias now a point away from Marcos Chavez, who's definitely just sort of letting this go here for the last 5 or 6 points.
Yeah, no, I'm counting. He has 10 seconds. 16 serve 17.
Was that Marcos complaining? That's part of that gamesmanship thing.
I believe it was John complaining that the ref wasn't calling the score quickly enough because Marcos wasn't ready.
Yeah, before the score, it's Marcos who actually has the 10 seconds.
Right, but after the score, the ref also has, I mean, the server has 10 seconds. Yeah, I couldn't tell who he was talking to, though. I guess, obviously, he didn't call the score, so I should have known, but Marcos was set by the time.
Oh, boy, uncharacteristic.
Oh, my goodness.
Now we're all together.
There's that example of certainty and uncertainty.
Now you hear that talking from Marcos. Now, if you're a handball fan, try to watch from this moment on and look up the idiosyncrasies of the way the match is going to end, because Marcos is going to pull some gamesmanship stuff here. You're seeing it already as he's talking to himself, but he's really all he's doing is trying to talk to John Iglesias, trying to send a message.
And Dave, since Marcos skipped that shot, there's been 30 seconds that have
17
passed.
serve 17.
We still have not served yet. We're now at 35 seconds with no serve.
Brilliant play by Marcos there. He's allowed 10 and he got about
He
30.
got 38. And it's interesting, John, I time the amount of seconds between points in Indian Wells and did an average of it. It was an average of 24 seconds in the tennis tournament between points. Here we had 38 seconds in the first point that I timed in a handball match, and you'd think it would be a lot less time.
It usually is. Yeah, it usually is much less.
Well, I think, John, you brought it up on a previous broadcast that you should have as many seconds as your age.
Well, between the last serve and that ace was only 8 seconds, and John's saying, hey, I wasn't ready.
18 serve 17.
Well, John needs 26 seconds.
Marcos looking for compose himself for one last push.
That ball was short.
Serve, I saw it good.
I saw it short.
That 35-second break gave him just enough to.
And it was short.
Wait. Second serve.
Both line judges disagreed with that good call, and it was a second serve, so no point for Marcos.
I thought it was good also, Dave, sitting right below the short line.
No, it definitely was short.
Okay.
2 inches, 3 inches. This is going to be just a terrible overhit for Marcos.
Side out.
There's a side out.
And Dave, you see that is a big difference between handball and tennis. tennis, you
17 serves
get
18.
24 seconds, 26 seconds between points. Handball, you get usually 8 to 10 to recover. That's a lot of recovery time, Dave. 8 seconds compared to 26.
Yeah, that's true.
So your point is the handball player is the better athlete?
18
Well,
serves 17.
I'm just saying, I think it's easier for a tennis player to recover after a hard point. I mentioned nothing about who's a better athlete. I'll keep those opinions.
I'll just read that into it.
Okay.
John had his corner taken that time. Only ended up extending it one more shot, though.
Here's the big question for the live broadcast match at 5 o'clock.
19
Is
serves
it
17.
Emmett Peixote versus Dave Chapman on the live broadcast? Or is it Abraham Montijo versus Armando Ortiz on the live broadcast?
I think you've got a few tough ones today.
Well, we already know that Fink and Celesto will not be on the live broadcast.
That was an easy one, yeah.
Yeah, that's Chavez or Iglesias versus Andy Nett.
Yeah,
that's obvious. But I'm asking about that Peixote Chapman or
17.
Montijo Iglesias. We'll take votes
Who
on
did
Twitter at hashtag
Hold it.
WPH Live.
It's the only way to.
Your vote also
way.
counts too,
It's
John.
the only way to fair way to say. I don't have Twitter.
Okay.
I mean, I have it, but I forgot my password.
20 serves 17.
Well, you can still tune in. I mean, see what the votes are.
Some combination of Dave Vincent with numbers being vowels and some capitals mixed in, but I've got like 12 of them, and I can't keep them all straight.
That's also the password of my microwave. So hashtag WPH Live on Twitter. Put your vote in. Let us know if you want Abraham Montijo and Armando Ortiz or Dave Chapman versus Emmett Peixote.
2 minutes.
So Marcos is saying he's not wet.
If it's wet, it's wet.
I don't like
2
this at
minutes.
all. John tried to negotiate a glove change. That was denied. Then he negotiated a headband change, which is hard to argue for the referee. 2 minutes for a headband change? Dave, can that rule be changed? I mean,
well, I've heard some
yesterday?
referees say, come back in immediately. You're not going to take the 2 minutes. I've actually heard that said, even though that's also breaking a rule in itself. But I don't think it takes 2 minutes to change a headband. In fact, I can contest that it takes about 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you have wet hair and you don't want your gloves to get wet and you have to take that headband off, I like the way Nadi Alvarado Jr. does it, takes the side of his glasses and pulls his headband off. You can put the next one back on without getting your gloves wet. But no, it does not take 2 minutes. But I've seen referees say, just get your headband and put it on and get back in the court. We're not taking 2 minutes. John, what do you think about that rule? Because certainly you can say your headband's wet and take 2 minutes anytime you want. I don't like that rule at all. It doesn't take 2 minutes to put a headband on in any scenario, really.
Yeah, I think I've been one ref to just take charge. I don't know what I would do if they questioned it, but I think I've done that before. Just, all right, just get back in here. The other choice is, if it's held to a 2 minute timeout, say, okay, glove, shirt, headband, everything then.
Yeah, right. And that's what I would do here. Yeah, I mean, he could clearly make these guys change everything, but it's back in anyway. So Iglesias back at it 17-20. We sound like The View here this morning.
What's that?
Sorry. I know you only watch Bravo channel.
Oh, you're referring to a TV show.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was working that day.
Boiler?
So it's up to 18 now, and
What else is there?
Marcos, if you go back and play the tape, Marcos might be going up against the toughest announcer's curse ever, because we spent about 15 minutes just nominating him for King of the World.
And there he gets that side out.
I mean, it was just, there are crude terms, and I can't figure out the polite term I'm trying to say for how we treated Marcos for the first half of this match. And he's got to overcome that and a worthy opponent.
That's true.
That was a double bounce. John calling. Great shot from Marcos from the deep court.
Now, I'm not sure if this is translated out to America and those beyond in other countries, but we cannot hear the referee through our headsets. And perhaps he actually is going live for those watching around the world, but I believe the score is 20-18.
No, I believe he just got his 21st
Wow.
on that kill. I'm guessing 18-21. Nice re-kill there, though.
Incredible body control on that dive. Is not only does he make a great get, but he redirects it down the left. And Marcos just took a long look at me and took a big breath. basically saying, what do I need to do? That was one of my best shots of the match.
You know, just reading lips, it sounds like Cordova said 18 to 23, but I think maybe you're right, John, with the 21. I couldn't imagine 23 points being up there. And that's a beautiful shot from Marco Chavez, left-handed dead center with a little hop out.
There's David Fink in spot 1A. You got a
Put your hand up, Dave. There's DV waving up here.
I'm in the lounge enjoying the little Zambuca.
Well, that's a great music, isn't it?
My favorite.
Speaking of which.
Oh, terrible shot there from Marcos.
Yeah, that was worse. What Iglesias did was worse.
John has no argument here.
He hung out and did nothing.
He thinks he's saying Marcos affected his shot, but after the
it looked
way
like it was
been
going to be
playing all
close, but
day.
it passed in front of him, and you could see it. No, I know. I'm talking about the last one.
This is the John Iglesias I remember before he became the mature, centered person he is now.
Mature and centered is overrated.
I'm not judging.
Okay.
High pot, meet kettle black. Black, this is pot kettle.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better.
22 to 18. I like that shot right there. Marcos goes with that corner kill to the left, front wall, sidewall. He could have gone sidewall first and made it even look better, but
23 serves 18.
Got the point, 23 to 18 now. I told you guys it was 23 to 18.
It was a little late.
That was about 5 points ago.
It was 24 serving 18.
And here it is.
It's a timeout now for John.
It's a 1 minute timeout, but Marcos is serving to play Andy Net. And John is trying to get.
John is Chip Moralesing it here as he's down huge. Now he's going to make his push.
Jonathan's trying to get away from Luis Moreno.
Match point serves 18.
John has come back from 24-18 before to take a 25-24 lead. So he's no stranger to a comeback.
Uh-oh, that's tough. Watch what Marcos does here. Smart player. And Marco Chavez advances and will now face Andy Net as John Iglesias goes up against Luis Moreno. Dave?
Remember, Dave, John lost his match, but he beat Luis Moreno in New York the last time they played. And he beat him pretty handily, so he can't feel that terribly about his draw, knowing that he beat this guy the last time they played. Now, I would think Luis is going to show him a different Luis Moreno here, but at the same time, John has confidence. And Marcos and Andy Net will be a very interesting match, Dave. I don't believe they've ever played, and it's going to be a real contrast of styles. You've got the long and lanky and amazingly great serving Andy Net against Marcos, who's crafty and a shot maker.
Now that's going to be a very interesting matchup. In fact, that's a fun one to watch because, as you recall, another great fun one, Dave, was when Robbie McCarthy went up against Andy Net in Houston and almost lost. And now we have Andy Net going up against Marco Chavez. I really just don't know what's going to happen during that match whatsoever. But let's look at the bracket as we start from the top down. Luis Moreno at 6 o'clock is going to play John Iglesias, John Bike. And then Aaron Garner is going to go up against Nadi Alvarado Jr. And I guess if you were going to put that one on a live broadcast, you'd pick, I guess, Nadi and Garner, or do you pick Iglesias and Moreno?
Alvarado brings the biggest following.
That's true.
If you're going purely ratings. But just the intrigue of Iglesias having beat Moreno last month makes that one a close one to call.
And then we look at the 7 o'clock match. That is Paul Brady and Nikolai Nahorniak.
Brady.
And then Luis Cordova and Sean Lenning, also at 7 o'clock.
Yeah, you don't ever not show Paul. But Paul Brady be playing Jimmy London. That's the match
Okay.
I would watch.
That's actually a good match. And then we have Emmett Peixote versus Dave Chapman at 5 o'clock. Abraham Montijo also at 5 versus Armando Ortiz. That should be an interesting match too. And then Andy Net, Marco Chavez, 4 o'clock. Anthony Celesto, Dave Fink also.
That's an easy one.
At that haunting hour. So we're definitely going to put that Marco Chavez and Andy Net. You heard the brackets. You can go on to r2sports.com and follow the action. But certainly if you want to see the round of 16 tonight, there'll be select matches. You can vote at hashtag WPH Live on Twitter. Put your votes in. Look at the R2 Sports page at the matchups and vote for the 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and 7 o'clock matches. Some of them are obvious. Some of them are just sort of up in the air. Tell us what you'd like to watch, and we're going to give it to you for free at racefor8.com. For John Bike, David Fink, my name is Dave Vincent. We'll have more handball action coming up at 4 o'clock Mountain Time. Right now it's about 15 after 2 o'clock here in Denver, Colorado. The Denver Athletic Club, the Edel Handball WPH Race for 8 Tour, number 3, stop number 5. We'll be back in a few hours with more continued coverage at racefor8.com.
Working and working out takes a lot of energy. That's why I drink Zenergy. Feeling fantastic and looking good has never been easier. Science, extreme science for your active lifestyle.